Are you stuck in a dinner rut? Don't worry, I've got you covered. These 5 chicken recipes are perfect for those nights when you have zero inspiration, but you still want something delicious on the table. We've got quick and crispy, cozy and comforting. There is literally a recipe in here for everyone. Let's get cooking. Tonight we are making this sheet pan pesto chicken that looks so delicious. I've already done some prep work here just to kind of get things moving. I chopped up some baby yellow potatoes. I just quartered them unless they were really big, and then I cut them into like 6 or 8, just depending on the size. We need to add a few things to this before we put them on the sheet pan. I also have my oven preheating to 425 degrees. To the potatoes, I'm gonna add some oil. This is avocado oil. I need about a tablespoon or so. You can add more if you feel like you need it, but I just know just judging by the amount of potatoes that I have here, that'll probably work really well. Make sure we get them nice and coated. I also lined my baking sheet with parchment paper and I sprayed it. That is something that I do find it helps a little, especially with potatoes, because they have a tendency to stick whenever we do sheet pan meals. And so that's kind of the way to keep that from happening. Let's add a decent amount of garlic here. A few cloves, mix that together. And I do want to add some salt to this, making sure that the potatoes get good flavor. So probably around a teaspoon for this amount of potatoes. Remember, potatoes are great, but they taste like nothing without adding some spices and flavor to them, like some salt and pepper. You can add whatever kind of things you like. Now we've got garlic on there. I ordered groceries yesterday and forgot to order onion powder, so looks like I'm gonna be making a trip, but I'm gonna add some onion powder to these just to add even more flavor. I'm adding some lemon, so I'm gonna cut this one in half because we are gonna use the other half for the chicken. So we're going to just add the juice of this lemon here. My oven is not quite there, but it's almost there. So we're gonna go ahead and get these started. Got my pan here. Let's just put those on the pan, spread them out a bit. Now I'm gonna let these cook for about 20 minutes and then we'll add the chicken. While these are in, I'm gonna mix up everything that goes in the chicken. I do need to cut up some sun-dried tomatoes. I'm gonna make sure that we don't have a ton of oil. A little bit is okay. But a few of them, maybe I would say overall, maybe like a 1/4 cup or so. All of our cutting boards are dirty. And I don't like to cut sun-dried tomatoes on this cutting board because I feel like it leaves, it stains it. So we're just gonna cut them on this plate. Not ideal. Do as I say, not as I do. Get your cutting board out of the dishwasher, go ahead and give it a quick wash, and then you're good to go. I'm gonna add these sun-dried tomatoes to the chicken that I've already chopped. This was 2 large chicken breasts, and I just chopped them up into bite-sized pieces. If you prefer, you could cut your chicken into strips, but this is just easy enough to have it just like this in bite-sized pieces. So I'm going with that. All right, let's add some pesto. I'm using store-bought pesto, and that was the sheet pan. So here's what I typically do. I will find a recipe that requires pesto. It's not super expensive, but it's also not a cheap thing in the grocery store. So whenever I find a recipe that needs pesto, I will make that recipe, but then for the next week for our groceries, I'm typically looking for another recipe that requires pesto because I don't want this jar to go to waste. I don't want it to just sit in there forever when I've got pesto and we love the flavor. So I'm adding about a 1/3 cup, maybe closer to a 1/4 cup. Okay, I'm gonna take that half lemon that we used and zest the lemon. Y'all, if you're not making sheet pan meals, I do feel like you're missing out. They don't have to be bland, they don't have to be boring, but they often will be healthier than some other options. I mean, obviously you're adding some oil into this and stuff, so you may wanna change that part up if you're looking to cut down on fat content, but they're gonna be fresh. They can absolutely be delicious. They don't have to be boring at all. I do wanna add a little bit of heat to this, so I'm just gonna add a touch of cayenne red pepper. Just maybe a 1/4 teaspoon or so, maybe closer to a 1/2 teaspoon just because we like that. And then I'm gonna finish off this onion powder. Just a touch of garlic powder. We'll add a pinch of salt and mix all of that together. This is gonna be so good. I'm a huge sun-dried tomato fan. And then you add in that pesto and that lemon zest to add just the most, like, the freshest flavors. This is gonna be really good. Set this to the side. We've got about 15 more minutes still on the potatoes. So I'm gonna make up our little arugula salad that goes on the side. Let me wash this bowl and then we'll move on. Oh, we've got about 1 minute left. So let's get the arugula dressed really quickly. It doesn't take hardly anything at all. Just the other half of that lemon. Just gonna add a little bit in here. Just a touch of oil. Really, you don't need much at all. That's probably a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half. Start to kind of toss that together. Really simple here. This is just, oh, we're ready. This is just a nice little vibrant salad. I'll grab that in 1 second because we have one more ingredient here, Parmesan cheese. Just add a toss of Parmesan cheese in here. So good. This gives that saltiness because Parmesan is a little salty. And that's it. Just gonna be like a little easy side salad. Let's get that sheet pan out of the oven. And let's just add the chicken. Get it all over, kind of spread it around. I probably could have added more sun-dried tomatoes into this now that I'm looking at it. I would say if that's an ingredient that you really, really love, then add more. You guys know how I cook. If I feel like a recipe calls for, you know, a teaspoon and a half of something, but I feel like it would be better with 3 teaspoons, that's what I'm gonna go for. Now, I'm not too concerned about getting green on here, although I still might add some thyme to the top of it once it's nice and cooked. The reason I'm not concerned about that is because we've got the little arugula salad that's gonna go on the side. Let's take this. This is gonna go back in for about 20 more minutes. All right, this just came out of the oven. Do we want to serve it on the plate or you want to try it right off the sheet pan here?
I want to try here because that looks so pretty.
Okay.
I did taste that earlier though.
The arugula?
Yeah, that's yummy.
Okay, so chicken, pesto, get you a sun-dried tomato to go with it. And the potatoes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I love sun-dried tomatoes.
We're gonna die. Battery's about to die.
Which one? Mine?
No, camera.
Welcome back. I was just telling Amber that it's got some kick to it.
I did. You guys saw I added some cayenne pepper.
Our son may be a little put off by it. That's what we'll say.
But the flavors are so fresh.
Yeah.
You've got that pesto, the lemon flavor comes out, the sun-dried tomato. I didn't taste the potato, did you?
I did, with the sun-dried tomato.
Okay.
It was good. Also,
you guys, the number of times that we are done with making dinner and we go to film a taste test and the battery dies on the camera. If you could be present for that, it's like, oh, it's almost every time.
Fire drill. Did you taste it with a sun-dried tomato?
No, I just tasted the potato and it's really good.
They're really done, well done.
Everything is really fresh. I tasted the arugula salad a few minutes ago. Again, very fresh. If you don't like arugula, switch it out for something like spinach because arugula does have a very peppery kind of flavor. You could do kale. If you massage, I know you don't like kale that much, but if you massage kale with an oil, it's actually really good and it softens it up a bit, like as if it were sauteed.
So are you gonna eat your bites of chicken and potato and sun-dried tomato with your bites of arugula?
Probably not.
Okay.
All right, let's serve it up. Do you have anything else to say?
I don't. I'm gonna try my bites with the arugula.
Okay.
Just see what happens. I like it. It just adds a different texture and the lemon flavor together.
We just finished cleaning up after dinner and I realized I forgot to share something with you. What are you looking at? Hummingbirds? We have a hummingbird feeder now and it's distracting all of us. The recipe that I used called for the chicken to go in for 20 minutes. I pulled it at probably 16 and a half. And honestly, I think that it probably could have been pulled in between 13 and 14 minutes. It was still fine. It wasn't overdone or anything, but it does not need 20 minutes in the oven unless you have really big pieces of chicken. So watch that just as a note because I don't want you to overcook your chicken and then it tastes like rubber. We are going to make a crock pot buffalo chicken. It sounds delicious. When we are doing chicken in the crock pot, I definitely prefer chicken thighs. I think that they cook up a lot nicer than chicken breasts. They don't get dried out quite as easily. I am gonna be trimming quite a bit of fat off of these, and then we're also going to cube it. I'm just cutting maybe into bite-sized pieces. I'm not concerned with them all being perfect or exact or anything like that. I just wanna make sure that they aren't too big and they aren't too small. But you know, chicken thighs don't cut super evenly either. Now, this recipe is one where the chicken cooks for a few hours and then you add in broccoli at the end. Let's start the seasoning process. I am starting with some paprika, and this is just gonna about use this, but I have a backup. I got really smart this time, guys. And when I was ordering groceries, I made sure that I had backup of the things that I typically run out of. So we're adding about a ½ tablespoon of paprika. You want this to have a good amount of flavor, okay? Same with the parsley, about a ½ tablespoon. Right around a ½ teaspoon of garlic powder and onion powder. ½ teaspoon, I think I said that. I always add a little more though, because we just love these flavors. We have chipotle chili pepper here. So you can just use chili powder if that's what you want. If you want to cut down and make this a little more mild, I'm looking for the heat, okay? You don't have to make this super hot, but I'm gonna go ahead and add this chipotle chili powder. We keep this around when we want to add a little bit of spice to a dish, and you really only need about a ¼ teaspoon of this. So really not much at all. And I'm gonna add about a ½ teaspoon of salt. Now I'm gonna be using Cholula, but use whatever kind of hot sauce you prefer. About right around a ¼ cup. And then about 2 tablespoons of butter. Now this is salted, you can use whichever one you prefer. We're going to mix all of this together. Now, obviously this is not a ton, but like I said, that broccoli is gonna help to bulk it up. If you feel like you need to make more, I would just double this. Just, you know, however much you feel like is gonna be the right amount for your family. Man, you can smell the spice. Love it. Okay, I'm adding just a few tablespoons of water. That, I mean, really, maybe like 2 or 3. It's just gonna help to make a little bit of a sauce as this is cooking. It's going to make its own liquid anyway, but adding that water is just gonna help to add some more sauce in there, which if you're serving over rice or potatoes or something like that, it's nice to have that sauce. Then when we throw the broccoli in there too, it's gonna add to the broccoli. So good. You can cook this on low for 3 to 4 hours, or you can cook it on high for 1 to 2 hours. I am going to, let's just go ahead and cook it on high. We'll see what happens. Yeah, let's do high. I've got some broccolini here that I went ahead and just chopped up. We've also got some cream cheese, and this has been in the crock pot. It is nice and hot. I actually came in and turned it to keep warm because we weren't quite ready to eat yet. So now we're gonna turn it back up to high. Add in about 4 ounces of cream cheese. Probably even go less than that, maybe like 3. Add in the broccolini and just let this cook for about 15 to 20 more minutes. And then we will add in just a little bit of cheese at the end as well. Friends, this is so delicious. Do not skip this one. You saw I made it with chicken thighs. It's so, so, so good. The sauce that comes along with this, it's not that spicy. There is a little bit of kick to it, but man, this one is so good. Tonight we're having this really, really easy dinner. It is a chicken with this creamy dill sauce over the top. Super easy to make. It can all be made in pretty much one pan. Now I'm gonna be doing some potatoes and stuff on the side, also some asparagus that we just quickly saute, but everything as far as the chicken recipe goes, it's just in a one pan and it's only a few ingredients. So easy to make and so delicious. I've been prepping some of my stuff. I already took the 2 large chicken breasts that I have. I cut them in half this way and then I cut them into strips. For seasoning, I'm going really simple. We're gonna add some salt and some pepper. Okay, before I head over to the stovetop, I'm just finishing measuring out all of my ingredients. So we've got our chicken here. I've already taken some dill off of our garden and went ahead and got that all prepped and ready. You need about 3 tablespoons or so. I'm gonna take a cup of bone broth. This is chicken bone broth. and just measure that out. I'm using a light cream, but you could use heavy cream if you want. We just need about 2 tablespoons and about 2 tablespoons of butter. Okay, that's it for this part of the recipe. Chicken, dill, broth, butter, cream. Oh, obviously you can add whatever you want to this. So if you want to add extra things, you can add mushrooms, you can add onions, you can add whatever, anything you want to add. Now I just got the idea as I was getting the butter out of the fridge to change this up just a little bit. And rather than saute the asparagus separately, I'm actually gonna add it to the sauce that we're making. So it's all gonna be a part of the same thing. My other cutting board is dirty, so I wasn't thinking that one through because I didn't think that I was gonna do this. I would have washed it ahead of time. So we're gonna cut this into like 1-inch pieces or so. And let me tell you, the reason I'm doing this is because we did this in a recipe recently and it was so delicious to add the asparagus this way. I'm gonna take all of this over to the stove where everything else is gonna happen. My pan is getting hot. I'm gonna add a little bit of oil here. We're gonna use that for sauteing the chicken. I may do this in batches. We'll look and see. And you just wanna saute about 2 to 3 minutes each side. And I am putting this seasoning side down so that I can season the side that I didn't add anything to. Okay, this chicken is done. So I am going to transfer this to a plate. The other one is already in there. Check and see if I need to add a little more oil to the pan. We're gonna saute the asparagus quickly. I'm gonna add a little bit of broth, even though this is for the sauce we're making, just to help soften these up a bit. I'm gonna let these cook for about 2 to 3 minutes or so until they start to soften up. Also, that helped to release some of the stuck on bits at the bottom, which is perfect. I'm changing this recipe up a little bit, as you guys saw. The next step, the chicken broth actually needs to simmer over on the stove for about 10 minutes and reduce by half anyway. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour all of that in there and just let it reduce with the asparagus, cooking the asparagus at the same time. Okay, so my heat is on a medium right now. The broth is gonna start to simmer and then it will reduce. Then we can add in the rest of our ingredients. Okay, it's been a little less than 10 minutes. I'm gonna turn my heat down to low and pour in that cream. Mix that together. I'm gonna add that chicken back in. Just let this come back up to temperature. I also want to add in our butter, and I just think 2 tablespoons is too much, so I'm going to add in 1 tablespoon. Add in that dill. Now I know the recipe doesn't call for this, but I kind of want mine to be a little more saucy, so I'm going to add in some Greek yogurt and just make a little bit more of a sauce out of it. Greek yogurt and dill work really well together. Now ideally I would have had the Greek yogurt idea before putting the chicken in and kind of mixing together that sauce really well, but I think it'll be fine. Let's give this a try, see how those flavors are. That tastes light and refreshing. I love that dill. The asparagus also adds to the lightness of it. The sauce is really good. This is very, very good. It feels like a summer or a spring dish. That is delicious. I'm actually really pleasantly surprised by this one. We are making a Greek chicken and lemon rice. Not only is this so tasty, but this is 1 pot and it's just about 30 minutes to make this dinner, which is so incredibly easy. I did go ahead and pre-cook our rice, which makes this even faster. We actually made the rice yesterday. It's been in the refrigerator. I had some time available, so I knew that was gonna save me time today. I've got 2 pretty large chicken breasts here. We need to season these with salt, both sides. I'm also gonna add oregano, which is a wonderful Greek flavor. Gotta have oregano when working with Greek flavors. A little bit of paprika. It adds a smokiness and a beautiful color when you're cooking up the chicken. Okay, we're gonna rub that in just a little bit and then flip the chicken and season the other side. This side is gonna be the same thing, except I'm gonna add a little bit of red pepper flakes just to increase some extra flavor and a little bit of heat. Okay, I'm gonna turn my heat on. And we want a medium high. We wanna get this oil nice and hot before we put that chicken in. While my pan is heating, let's get some stuff prepped for the next part of the recipe. I've got some spinach that I've already chopped, and we've got some little tomatoes. You can cut them in half. I'm probably gonna cut them into, I don't know, we'll just kind of chop them up a little bit. They're kind of oddly shaped, so you can't just cut them in half. I mean, I guess you can, but we're not going to. I'm gonna toss these in some oregano. That's about a teaspoon. I'm gonna add a little bit of oil to them, although I think there'll still be some oil in the pan. I wanna add a little bit to these. Just about a teaspoon, really. And then a pinch of salt. Let's go back over to the other side. Everything else is pretty much ready. We've got some garlic, we've got some lemon that we're gonna be using with our rice. I actually have my rice over here. It's going through a reheat process because I cooked it yesterday and I want it to be nice and soft so that I can pull it out. If you put rice into a container and then put it in the fridge, it all clumps together. So I'm trying to re-soften that back up. I think I'm gonna cook the chicken in batches because this is a rather small cast iron skillet and we're not fitting 4 pieces in there. And we're gonna put on an apron because every time I use the cast iron skillets, I end up ruining a shirt. We are cooking our chicken all the way through, but we do wanna make sure that we're not burning it. We want everything that stays in that pan to add really good flavor to the next step that's coming, but we don't want it to be burnt. We wanna keep our heat to a medium low and not try and cook the chicken too fast. All right, we're taking the chicken out of the pan. These are done, so we just need to set them to the side. I'm taking about half of my tomatoes and adding them to my pan. It's pretty hot right now. We probably need to turn the heat down to low, but we just wanna make the tomatoes sweat and release their juices and just cook up a little bit. So we're gonna cook these for maybe 1 to 2 minutes before adding anything else. I'm gonna add a little bit more oil to the pan before we add the other ingredients. I'm adding a pinch of salt to these to really give them good flavor, just about a half teaspoon or so. We are at a good temperature now to add in the garlic. Let's do about a clove, maybe a clove and a half. Just let that cook for about a minute. Watch it, make sure your heat is on a low enough temperature that it doesn't burn. These have some great color, so we need to add in that spinach that we chopped up and let it wilt. As I'm looking at this, I'm thinking you can definitely add a lot more spinach because this is going to decrease in size so much. So if you want to add 6 to 8 ounces of spinach, just keep that in mind, that it's going to significantly decrease, probably by maybe a fifth or even more than that, honestly, because spinach wilts down to such a small amount. This is the rice that we cooked yesterday. I've re-steamed it and we are just gonna add about 2 cups of this to our pan here. I'm not really measuring, I'm just kind of, overall, this thing I think has 3 cups of rice uncooked. So we're adding about 2/3 of the total in here. Let's just stir all of this together, combine all of the ingredients that we have in there so far. Now before I continue stirring this, we need to add about 3 tablespoons of lemon juice to the rice. We really want to give this good lemon flavor. And now we mix it all together. Add in the rest of the tomatoes that were cut so that we can mix all of that together and bring all of this up to temperature. This is gonna go on a medium low heat, and we're just gonna let it cook for a few minutes. We're gonna make up our feta mixture, and we just need some feta cheese, just about 3 to 4 ounces or so. I'm using about 3/4 of a cup. And then I'm going to I wanna mix in some olive oil. So maybe about a teaspoon or so of olive oil. Then our lemon juice, mix in about a teaspoon of lemon juice, and then top that off with some oregano, and we'll just mix all of that together. This right here is gonna go into our rice in just a second, but before that, we need to cut up our chicken. I don't think I'm gonna use all 4 of these chicken breasts because it's just quite a bit. So we're gonna cut that up, each one of them just into slices, and then I'm probably gonna reserve 1 to 1.5 for lunches because it is so good on things like salads or in pasta salad. It's a perfect lunch option. So I'm kind of glad we have all this cooked up. All right, let's try the chicken. The flavor is so good. Okay, everything is nice and heated through, which is exactly what we want here. I'm gonna add in about half of the feta mixture and stir that around. Maybe a little more than half, actually. And then top this with that sliced chicken. Okay, let's mix some of it in a little bit and then top with the rest. Finish off with the feta mixture. And then I'm gonna go grab some thyme from the garden and add that as well. My husband is actually working in the yard and the kids are finishing up a math lesson. So I'm just gonna try this, even though we're not quite ready to eat. It's just gonna sit over there and stay nice and warm until we're ready, maybe 20 minutes or so. Let's give it a try. That is very good. You could definitely add more spinach, adding more green, and since it wilts down so far because we chopped it, I mean, it's little tiny pieces of spinach. So for anybody that doesn't like spinach, it probably wouldn't bother you. Initially, you get this bite of savory food, but then the lemon hits. And it's very good with the mixture of the lemon and the oregano and the salt and the feta cheese. This was so easy to make, guys. Like, one thing, you guys know I'm a prep aheader. Typically in a week, I will already have bacon prepped, sausage prepped, things like that. But rice is another thing that you can easily prep ahead of time if you're doing a bunch of things in your kitchen. So for me, I'll throw it into the rice maker and then it's ready. My kids can grab it if they need to add some carbohydrate to lunch or bulk up whatever their lunch is. I love having that available. Y'all, the flavors of this are really, really good. And I mean, look how many dishes I have. That's it. Today we are making Coq Au Vin. I think that's how you say it. We're gonna be making this in the crock pot because it really makes it easy, but honestly, you can make this in the crock pot, on the stove top, in your Instant Pot, whatever way you are most comfortable making it. It is currently 11:20, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started on this so that it can be in there for the rest of the day. This is one of those that truthfully, if you start it at 6, 7, 8 a.m., it's probably even better to cook it on low all day long. At this rate, we're probably gonna be cooking it on high so that we can eat dinner around 5:45 or 6. For our recipe today, we are using bone-in and skin-on chicken thighs. Now, I am going to sear these first before we put them in the crock pot. I just think that that adds such good flavor if you do that first. And then while these are searing, we will go ahead and prep all of our vegetables. I actually already have some oil heating over on my stovetop so that it's gonna be ready to go. Let's add some salt to each one of these. Now, I'm gonna season them on this side, and then when I put them in the pan, I'll season the other side. So making sure we've got really good flavor here. This is one of our opportunities to really make sure this is flavored well. I personally like to add a little bit of thyme, and we'll need to Add again. I like to add garlic powder, onion powder, and I love adding paprika. I love the flavor and the smokiness of it, but truthfully, I love that it adds color when you saute or when you sear these off. Okay, so paprika. All right, so we'll take these over, lay them in our, goodness, where are my words today? We'll put them in the pan, let them sear. I'm gonna go ahead and season the other side once we get them in there. All right, now that we've got these in here, let's go ahead and season up the other side. You can smell all those spices and man, it's already smelling so good. Now, while those are working, I'm gonna get started on our vegetables. So we are using mushrooms. Cremini is the best to use. They're a little bit more pricey, but I do feel like it's worth it. We're only gonna cut these in half, but I am gonna give them a quick wash. Oh man, look at that color. That is what you want, y'all. This is gonna be so good. Okay, let's just let it sear on that side while we work with our carrots. I'm just cutting the carrots into like the same thing that you would do if you were doing a roast. That is my preference on this. So cutting them into, I don't know, 2-3 inch length pieces. And then some of them I'm gonna quarter depending on how thick they are. Some of them will just half. So they're not matchsticks, they are just carrot sticks. We'll go with that. I used 3. I would say use whatever amount you like. Now, whenever I open up a can of tomato paste, I usually freeze the remaining amount into 1 tablespoon portions so that we can have it, because you know, you almost never use an entire thing of tomato paste. So we need 2 tablespoons of tomato paste here in the crock pot. About 4 cloves of garlic. Now, this does call for a pretty decent amount of thyme, but fortunately, that's something we have on the garden. I'm gonna take about 2 tablespoons or so of the leaves and add them into the crock pot. And then we'll add a couple of sprigs in as well. Let's add in those carrots that we've chopped and the mushrooms. Mashed potatoes are delicious with this. You can actually add in your potatoes here and let them cook in this broth, then pull them out and mash them. So they're gonna be cooked in that same great flavor. We're cooking this in the smaller crock pot tonight, and I don't think potatoes and all those chicken breasts are gonna fit, so I'm gonna make the potatoes separately. Now, this recipe calls for 1.5 cups of dry red wine. So this is a Pinot Noir. One thing you can do if you have a little bit of extra time is take some of this and put it over on your stove, let it reduce. So you start with like 3 cups, but let it reduce down to about 1.5 cups. And that's another really awesome way to do this and just add such a great richness. This all depends on the amount of time that you have. I'm adding about 1 cup of bone broth. You can use chicken broth, chicken stock, whatever your preference is, but just around 1 cup. Okay, I actually did get some new bay leaves, so now we have whole bay leaves. I'm gonna add in, let's do 3. We'll just kind of nestle them in there and we'll pick those out before we eat. Okay, now we take our chicken and we lay it on the top. I probably should have used my larger, oh my goodness, look how good this looks. Oh my goodness. I probably should have used my larger crock pot if I'm being honest, but it's okay. I'm gonna use it for a different recipe. We're setting these on the top. I don't think I mentioned it, but you can see chicken goes in skin side up. All right, this is going in my crock pot. We're probably gonna let this cook for, at least 4 hours. I'll check it. If I need to crank it down to low, I'll do that, but I really think it's gonna be fine at 4 hours or so on high. It might even take up to 5. So we'll see how this is. The one thing I wanna be careful of is that the carrots just don't turn to mush. But the fact that we seared the chicken will allow it to cook a little bit faster because we've already given it a head start. So put this in there and we're gonna come back, and about 30 minutes before this recipe is done, we're gonna take the lid off, but continue to let it cook, and it's gonna help that sauce to thicken up a little bit. I was putting everything away, cleaning up, and I just realized that I didn't add in the little pearl onions that we have for this. So hang on, let's fix this really quick. I'm actually gonna pull the chicken out and just set it on this cutting board because I want the onions to go underneath it with all the other vegetables. We definitely don't need the whole bag, maybe a cup. You can add in however many you like. That's probably good. Now we'll add the chicken back in and let it cook. All right, I've pulled my chicken out, and this step is not totally necessary. I know a lot of people don't do this, but I do think, again, it just adds a little bit of a richness. A tablespoon of melted butter mixed with a tablespoon of flour. Then we pull out some of our liquid here and mix that together. And when we pour this back in, it's really just gonna help just add a little bit of thickness. It's not a lot because we're only doing 1 tablespoon, but it just, to me, I feel like it's so good when you serve it like this over mashed potatoes because it's almost like a gravy. Again, you can skip this step and just serve it with this liquid here, completely fine. We do need to pull those bay leaves out. Okay, I'm gonna let the lid stay off and just continue to let that sauce thicken up for the next couple of minutes while my potatoes are cooking. Oh yay, there's the bay leaf, found it. Another thing you can add in is bacon. So I'm just gonna crumble up some bacon. It's just gonna reheat in there. This one is already cooked. Now, if you do not have cooked bacon, at the very beginning of your recipe, when you are making your chicken, what I would suggest is to make your bacon first, then cook your chicken in some of that leftover bacon fat. That's gonna be really delicious. Friends, I thought that I was recording the taste test to this, and apparently I pressed record when I was done with it. So I did not get that on camera. However, this was really delicious. I mean, bold flavors here. So easy to make it in the crock pot. Yes, you have a couple different steps that you need to do, but it's absolutely worth it to make this recipe. So good, so delicious. And I feel like if you're gonna make this in the crock pot is probably the easiest of the methods just because you can walk away, but highly suggest trying this one. Our verse today comes from Psalm 84:11. For the Lord God is a sun and shield. The Lord bestows favor and honor. No good thing does he withhold from those whose walk is blameless. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope that you got some inspiration for your week ahead. Let me know in the comments which one you think was the best and which one you will be making first, because all of these are winners. I promise you cannot go wrong with any of them. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next one. Have a great week.